Hello and welcome to the Under Center podcast. I'm your host, Fionn Malloy. And before we get going today, can I please get you guys to like and subscribe to us here on YouTube? Of course, you can drop us a comment as well. Let us know what you think, how we're doing. We love to hear all your feedback. And of course, I am joined by my two co-hosts. They are the masterminds of a competition league to this European Super League, the European Mega League, they're calling it. Dara Maher and Jake Woolhead, how are you guys doing?
One sport I don't even watch, Fionn. It's the one sport I don't watch football at all unless I have bet money on it or I'm drinking all day. So I don't watch it. So that's why I'm trying to get it out of just a one league in England and make it a big European league.
I do hope Air League is going to last longer than the 72 hours the other one is lasting at the moment.
It's falling apart rapidly over there at the moment. So the perceptive among you will notice that I'm the one in the hot seat today. And not Mr. Dara Maher as he usually is, and that's for good reason. We have reached the most important team on our off-season schedule tour around the NFL, and that is, of course, the Washington football team. I know Jake will do his best to tear us down.
It's just simply not true.
As Giants fans always do, so I've brought in the big guns to help me out. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tay and Todd from the aptly named Tay and Todd Washington Football Podcast. Guys, it's great to have you on with me.
Thanks so much for having us.
No problem.
Thank you.
We normally start off these shows with a little rundown of last season. If you guys want to let me know what you thought of last season, whether it's on the coaching side, maybe some games that stood out. I know for me, the Eagles, Dallas, and Steelers were big wins for us last season. I want to know what you guys thought of the season and things that stood out.
It was definitely a COVID year, because they were 1-5 and then they were 2-7 and then they finished 7-9. So it was one of those years where they had reached the point where I said, okay, they're bad. We'll be in position to get a quarterback. And I was content with that. And then they turned around and it was like, they're competing for the playoffs. And I had to suddenly switch my emotions another way, which is not very easy to do. But in the end, it was a fun year. I think more than anything, just being able to contend for the playoffs down to week 17 is fun. Anything less than that is just terrible. So it was a fun year and I appreciate that.
I had the same feeling as you, Todd. As a Giants fan, it came down to that last game for us as well, right. With obviously the football team against the Eagles, which they tanked. I'll forever be sore about that one. But however, it does feel that little bit of retribution that I get because now the football team are in that really awkward position where they have three quarterbacks and not one of them is NFL level.
Yeah, I'm envious of your draft spot, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah, and I want to back Todd. On that. It was an interesting year. You know, you go from the name change in the offseason to Ron Rivera with cancer to Dwayne Haskins to it was just so much, you know. And then I look back at what I think turned the season around was actually against the Giants. We went for it on the 2-point conversion and we failed. But I think that kind of shaped the mentality of a Ron Rivera culture team, and it kind of showed like, hey, we're going to fight. And we may lose, but I'm going to show you that we're going to teach these guys how to win. And the team just took on his mentality and his culture it was just wonderful. And that's what I loved about it. I love the Steelers game. I love the end of the year. I love Chase Young. And it was just, we started to see that young talent kind of expand. And we're a really young team.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I think for me, it was the big standout that we looked much tougher this year than we have in previous seasons. And I definitely put that down to Ron. He's known as Riverboat Ron for a reason. He goes for it. And that's great to see our football team do stay competitive, stay in those games, like you mentioned, right. Todd, and be competitive. And I agree with you guys. It was such a weird year. Obviously, I don't know if any other team went through as much as the Washington football team did. Some of the stuff that even kind of gets forgotten, like it was only the last preseason we dropped the name. Then obviously Coach Rivera came out with cancer. I think he did an excellent job last season. I want to know what you guys thought overall of his coaching performance.
I thought he was good. I thought he was, he made some decisions that people hated early on. Like he said, he was protecting the team by not, maybe fighting or using timeouts in the last few minutes. There was the 4th and 13 attempt against the Ravens, testing Dwayne Haskins. People thought it was weird. It was weird, but I didn't mind it. But overall, he was consistent, I think. He was aggressive throughout the season, which I loved. He was clearly, and any of the decisions he made that people on the outside questioned, he didn't communicate his thoughts or his intentions to us, and he doesn't have to. But the locker room seemed to be very much tuned and aware of his mindset and why he was doing what he was doing, and that's all that matters. So I thought he did a great job. Obviously, he can improve, and I think he said he's going to work a little more closely with the coordinators, but because of the cancer, he couldn't. But you can't ask for much more than that with, a first year and an abbreviated offseason and a bad quarterback.
Yeah, I'll back that. He did a wonderful job, and I love Ron to death. He's the first guy who, if I were to meet him in person, I would call him coach. And I don't even play for the man. I don't get paid for watching, but I just respect him so much, man, and just the way he talks to the players, and you could just sense that family. No leaks. He's about his business. He keeps everything honest. We don't even, like Todd said, he doesn't care what we know. He wants the people in the locker room to know that he has their utmost respect. And I think he did a wonderful job, and I love what he's building. He's building a fantastic culture here in Washington, and I'm so thankful that he chose us out of all the teams.
Right.
Yeah, I always respected him in Carolina as well. I always thought he did a great job there. One thing you touched on as well, Todd, was our quarterback situation last year. We're one of the few teams who managed to get to the playoffs using 4 quarterbacks over the course of the season. It was pretty dramatic. We also saw the straw that broke the camel's back in Mr. Dwayne Haskins. He finally got cut. Is that something you guys were expecting, glad of, looking forward to, or were you guys feeling a bit sorry and kind of wanted him to make it a little bit here? I mean, he was a hometown guy, so that would have been a nice narrative, but I guess it wasn't.
Yeah. It would have been great. It would have been fantastic. I'm gonna do the more diplomatic, political response. And I wasn't necessarily happy when he got released, but I wasn't sad either. I was definitely rooting for him throughout the offseason. The videos, thought he was gonna be great, but you kind of started to see pretty immediately that it kind of just wasn't there, and so. For me, the goal of the season, one of the main goals was not for Dwayne to be the franchise quarterback. It was to find out if he is. And we found that out. People hated that he was benched after week 4. I said, he hasn't shown anything to show. He hasn't done anything to show he should keep starting. And we found out at the end, we got complete ultimate closure, which I think some people really needed. So I'm glad that we moved on, that we're not going into this next offseason saying, well, maybe Dwayne, maybe there's still, no, it's clear. He's gone. Let's move on. I love that. That was a huge check mark off the box off the to-do list. Now the bigger one is to find the actual quarterback.
Dwayne, we were the biggest Dwayne supporters. If you followed us in the beginning when we first started, Todd and I were the biggest Dwayne supporters, and it just kind of fell off towards it. Ron had a unique opportunity. He got to start 4 quarterbacks this year, and people questioned him at the time, but now you look back and nobody's really questioned him because you look at Dwayne, it just didn't work out there. You look at Kyle, it just that situation, he got hurt. Then you go to Alex, he does well. Then you go to Taylor Heineke, and he got a chance to evaluate all 4 of those quarterbacks, and he was in a unique situation. While doing that, we were also winning games, for the most part, winning the division. But Dwayne, it showed early on, he struggled with accuracy. He struggled with decision making, and honestly, I was frustrated, and I'm just glad that we moved on, and I'm glad we don't have a coach who's blind to the fact that it wasn't the talent around them, because they produced. Logan Thomas produced when he had other quarterbacks in there. It was the problem was the quarterback, and I'm glad we were able to move on.
That you don't get to see a first-year head coach do quite a bit is have that ability to evaluate that many quarterbacks, and especially what you do with like a second-year quarterback that was picked in the first round, like Dwayne Haskins, to give him that chance to show you he could be the guy on that 4th and 15, which you mentioned to Todd, that but he didn't take that chance, and so you got a really good picture of who he was as a quarterback. Right. Maybe he could grow, maybe not, but that was something you had a good sign of at that time. Yeah,
and it was affecting your ability to evaluate other players at other positions too. So it was just that's a good point.
Do you think Haskins was late to his meeting getting cut by Ron Rivera because he was taking selfies outside his meeting?
I definitely think it's possible. Definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
He may have been at the strip club. We don't know.
But I want to ask about, because probably, well, you've made a lot of free signings that I'm sure Fion's going to get into there soon. But the one that I wanted to ask about is still in the quarterback position, and that is, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan Fitzmagic, Ryan Fitztragic, as Jake likes to call him. But obviously every fan will know that this is going to be sort of a bridging quarterback until the guy that you want comes along. And now, does that mean it's going to be the guy in this draft, or would you be happy to wait till next season to reevaluate things then?
I think this is one area where me and Tate tend to disagree. We agree on pretty much everything else, but I like that they signed Fitzpatrick because he is clearly a bridge. There's no question. His age makes him a bridge. I would absolutely love for them to address it this year, though. My reasoning is, if they are able, my reasoning is we have needs at linebacker, and no one's saying put it off till next year. We have a need at tight end. No one's saying put it off. We need to strengthen the offensive line. No one is saying put it off. Safety. No one is saying put off any other need till next year, except for the biggest one where they're saying just put it off till next year. And next year is just so unpredictable. There's a number of teams next year that could need a quarterback. You never know. Next year, the Seahawks may trade Russell Wilson, and the Giants may move on from Daniel. You never know, what could happen. So it could be just as bad next year, and the team could be in this similar spot where in the middle rounds they need to trade up. So I can see, if the opportunity doesn't present itself, don't overpay. But I would love for them to do it this year, and then now you have the opportunity to let that guy sit and learn. He's not forced to play immediately. So I'm all in on this year. Tay may be different.
Yeah, I have a question before I go forward. Is Fitzpatrick the best quarterback in the division?
No, let's not forget about Daniel Turnover Jones.
I'm just asking.
By a mile.
I will say I was a big fan of Fitzmagic, but he certainly just joined the wrong team in the wrong division for me. But what I will enjoy is watching him win you 2 games. Everybody's riding the Fitzmagic roller coaster, and then he throws 4 interceptions in a single game.
Yeah, you go up and then you go down.
The Fitzpatrick roller coaster.
Yep.
I'm conflicted on this, and I bounce back and forth. Ideally, I would love a quarterback this year and kind of develop him underneath, Fitzmagic, as he is the bridge. But the price seems like it's so high this year because everybody's in it for a quarterback. So I'm like, well, let's build and then maybe look at a Davis Mills or Kellen Mond, or who I don't like, or Kyle Trask, or somebody else in the later rounds, because I think on offense, I think we're pretty much starting to form a nucleus, especially young guys. And I think if you get a guy behind that can sit behind Fitzmagic for a year, say a Trey Lance, and you go into next year and it's like, okay, he has all these weapons at his disposal, and it's like, man, what his potential automatically rises. So I'm conflicted here. I love Trey Lance. I would love for us to get him, but I think the price is too steep, and it's hard. It's hard. Like, we're in a rough spot. I kind of wish we would have lost the division, but at the same token, I'm glad we won it. But it's like, it's tough.
It's just the 49ers' fault for just basically destroying the market when it comes to draft choices, just to get Mac Jones. You spend all that draft capital on Deshaun Watson or Mac Jones. Like, it's really that difficult of a decision to make, isn't it?
Right.
Do you think they're going Mac Jones at 3?
I think they are. I think they are the victim of how you guys were for Dwayne Haskins. It was pre-draft hype. I think Mac Jones, nothing was really said much about him during the season. He was like, okay, end of the first round, start of the second round. And then now that the season ended, I don't know where all this hype has come from for Mac Jones, that now he's a top tier quarterback, that he's better than Fields, that he's better than Trey Lance. And then obviously the 49ers are selling their future just to see if he's going to be a hit, where I actually think Fields is probably a better fit for the 49ers with his ability to run as well as throw, where Mac Jones, I think when he senses pressure, he just gets way too nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't wait. That's going to be the most exciting part of the draft, is what they do at 30.
Yes.
Yeah.
while we're on the draft, I think it's a very interesting scenario for the Washington football team this season. I was listening to you guys and your breakdown of the different mock drafts, and you were kind of grading the excitement level. And I don't really know of any other team that has so many players mock drafted to us. We're across the board, from offensive tackles you've never heard of to Devontae Smith, who has no chance of landing to us, all the way up to Trey Lance. So where you guys landed in your podcast, obviously, was Trey Lance seemed to be the most exciting guy. Do you think that should be something we can stretch to? I know we've touched on whether we should or we shouldn't go up, but is he the type of talent, let's ask that, if we did go up, do you expect him to be able to perform at the NFL level, given he played in that kind of slightly lower level of college football?
Yeah, I'll start off by saying yes. The reasons being, you have all the physical traits in terms of the arm strength, or not just arm strength, but arm talent, accuracy, which I know his accuracy is not as great as some of the other guys, but when I watch him, I don't see concerns about his accuracy, and he's a really good downfield thrower. So in terms of a passer, he has everything you're looking for. His mechanics can be tightened up, but they're not terrible. We've seen much worse. And then you look at what he can do running the ball. So all of that athletically is great, but then you off the field, leadership, maturity, work ethic, that's all there too. And then my question becomes, how many guys have all the physical tools and then have all the mental tools, have all the intangibles and still fail? That's you don't see a lot of that. We talked to his best friend and roommate, and he said he's up at 7 a.m. watching film. He's taken over the meetings. He's leading the meetings. Even now that he's not there anymore, he's texting his friend, making sure he's up when he needs to be. And so that stuff is, that's the stuff Dwayne Haskins was missing, along with some other things. So I watch him and I see what he did. He played at a high level in a good situation, but he still dominated, which what else can he do but dominate? And then on top of that, just mobile quarterbacks, running quarterbacks can automatically have more success more immediately because of the dual. Look at RG3 in 2012. We know what happened, but there was some ego concerns. There's some relationship head coach issues there. So if Trey Lance can come in and he can be a dual threat that can make all the throws, and then it makes it so much easier to scheme the throws for him. Absolutely. And I think Scott Turner would just have a blast doing that. So I am all in on Trey Lance, despite the limited experience and the FCS level of play. I really do think he has what it takes to be good if a team uses him properly.
Yeah, I second that. I think we're like the perfect situation for him, only because we have that bridge quarterback and we have young weapons, and he's 20 years old, so he can grow with these weapons. And it's like we have a new coaching staff who he can kind of grow with, and it's not like it's being forced on this coaching staff to pick this guy.
Right, which is another big thing.
Huge thing that Todd always talks about. And I think, honestly, it's the ideal situation for Trey Lance. And if we were to get him, I would be content with letting him sit for the whole year, although I think he would end up taking over because of just the intangibles that Todd talked about, how he's in the office, he's working out how he leads the meetings, and how he just has that work ethic that we have lacked with quarterbacks for the past couple of years, So I think Lance, I would come if we drafted Lance, I think I would be thrilled. I think you start your dynasty with that pick right there, honestly.
Okay, so we're going to take it really quick back down to ground level. Let's say we don't trade anywhere. We're picking at 19. Two of the guys I'm most interested in your guys' analysis was the linebacker out of Notre Dame, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and then or Rashad Bateman. Which would you rather if it came down to it? Who should we pick out of those two guys? Direct comparison.
Okay, so I really like Rashad Bateman. The only reason I'm going to say, oh man, that's tough. Okay, I like Rashad Bateman a lot, but I'm going to say Owusu-Koramoah. If they pick him, they know how to use him. That's what I'm assuming, because you got to know how to use him. But if they pick him, they know how to. And I think that his impact on the defense can be more than Bateman's on the offense, because you signed Curtis Samuel, you have Terry McLaurin, but then also the depth at the wide receiver position in the draft is high. And so I think you can get a player who can help you out at the wide receiver position in the second or third more easily than a linebacker who could help you out like Owusu-Koramoah in the second or third, if that makes sense. But I do love Bateman. He is up there, and someone compared him to Allen Robinson, which I love Allen Robinson. So that's a great comparison.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm hoping Parsons drops there at 19, but I'm really hoping that. But I think you got to go linebacker there. I think you get someone like Bateman. I think he's going to go second round. I think we may have an opportunity to get him in the second round, or someone that's equivalent to that type of talent. I think Owusu. I think he's just. I mean, some people say he's on the same level as Isaiah Simmons, and Simmons went, I think, top 10 last year. So if you can add that piece to your defense, I think that just makes it that much more dynamic. And you see what the linebackers can do. Look at Tampa last year and how their linebackers literally shut down games because of their speed and because of their physicality. So I could see that. I would like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, mostly because, like you mentioned, Tate, he's probably the best value for money. There's very few other linebackers projected up there in the draft, so I think you get the best value at that position at the time.
Yeah.
I did mention earlier we've been mock drafted a whole load of players, quite a lot of them on the offensive line. We've had some decent players at the offensive line, not just last year, but in the past. Brandon Sheriff signed his franchise tag, but he didn't sign a contract extension. Does that worry you guys, especially given what happened to Trent Williams?
Yeah, it definitely does. I don't think he will resign here. I think that they are going to draft someone in the mid rounds at the interior line position and hope that he can develop, or see maybe what Sadiq Charles can do, how they like Wes Schweitzer. It does concern me that he won't resign, but the one advantage to him not resigning is that you won't be paying an offensive guard $80 million. So, there are some advantages to it. And if this year on the tag he gets hurt again, then you kind of can see maybe how that was a good decision. But yeah, it does concern me that he won't resign. I don't think he will, because from what I understand, they offered him top guard money and he didn't take it. So, but that's fine.
Yeah, I think that situation you're in a good spot because you get to develop a guy while you have him on contract for a year. So they'll probably draft a guy, I'm assuming, in the mid rounds, let him develop on the Sheriff, and then once he leaves,
you also have Keith Ismail too.
Oh yeah, I like him a lot.
And that's something I think we've addressed a little bit that we've been missing in the past, is some depth on the line a little bit.
Right.
I think in the past we've had great starting lines, but we really struggled. I can think even 5 years back, just keeping even one consistent line going. And there was real questions over the strength and conditioning. And it's, again, fed into that Trent Williams situation where he wasn't happy with the care he's been given. So I hope you guys agree that probably Ron Rivera and his culture is definitely doing a lot to help that atmosphere inside the camp.
Yeah, I think so. It makes you wonder, it definitely makes you wonder why a guy like Sheriff maybe he doesn't want to be there, but if he doesn't want to be there, then Rivera has said, well, we want guys who want to be here. So if you don't want to be here, that's fine. You saw Quentin Dunbar leave. You saw Trent Williams leave. So yeah, I think that it definitely is creating that atmosphere, but since it's only year 2, they're still turning over the roster. You're still finding out who are the guys that are saying, we're in this for the long haul. We want to see this through. And the guys who are saying, I'm ready to go. So, but they're going to get there for sure. And I think by year 3, you're going to see a real core of guys that they brought in, probably 35 guys that weren't on the roster in 2019.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And you guys have started talking about this core that we're developing in the Washington football team. Of the 2 big free agents that we've signed, excluding Mr. Ryan Fitzmagic, Curtis Samuel and William Jackson, who do you think is going to have a bigger impact on the team this season? Who do you expect? Who are you most excited to see?
That's a really good question. I'm going to go with the one whose impact will be easier to quantify. I'm going to steal the easier answer from you, Tay, and go with Curtis Samuel, just because we'll be able to see it more so with our eyes. I just think that having Ryan Fitzpatrick, he's going to sling the ball around. And Scott Turner is going to call out of passing plays. He's going to let them sling the ball around. And so I think we'll see a lot from Curtis Samuel, a lot of movement before plays, a lot of get him the ball, let him go. And with William Jackson, he could have a huge impact, and he could his impact could be that no one throws the ball to his side. And so you say he's not having an impact, but he is having a big impact. No one's throwing the ball at him. So I'm going to say Curtis Samuel, though.
I'm going to go William Jackson. And I cannot wait until we play the New York Football Giants and then he shuts down Kenny Galladay, who they overpaid.
You ain't going to shut down Kenny G. That's okay. Devontae Smith's going to be open. Saquon's going to be open. We're going to be running everywhere.
If Saquon's on the field, he'll be open.
Yeah. That is a good point. We got that Devontae Booker from the Raiders.
Right. I like William Jackson a lot.
I have maybe a little bit of a controversial question, given that we're Washington fans and we shouldn't really be talking about downfalls. But do you think is something we really need to fix, or at least it strikes me as a kick returner, a punt returner? The Simses had a go at it last season. They dropped many footballs, way too many for a professional football player. Is that something we really need to figure out, given that it can get you a lot of yards for free?
That's actually a phenomenal question. I think that's the most underrated need on the team. I think that is the most underrated need. I think that and number 2 tight end, but I think that is huge because having a bad punt returner is a problem, can lead to losing games. Having an average one can keep you from losing games, but not help you win. But having a good one can actually help you win games, with field position, with touchdowns. Last one we had was Brian Banks in like 2009. Santana Moss, dabbled in it. Deshaun Jackson didn't really do much for us in that regard positively. It's a huge need. I'm glad you brought it up because they did sign someone. I can't remember his name. They signed someone, but I'm wondering if a wide receiver they look to bring in the middle, if what will separate one guy from another will be his ability to return punts and kicks. A guy like Dwayne Eskridge who can do kick returns over a guy who doesn't do that at all, because it's a huge need. And I mean, the team has just not been a very good special teams team for years. It'd be great to have someone who can at least catch the ball. It'd be even better to have someone who can do something once they catch it. So yeah, that's a huge need. Great question.
So infuriating to watch your kick returner either drop the ball or take it out of the end zone and get to the 15-yard line and get tackled. Just take the knee,
let it
man.
Bounce and it lands at the 1. It's just, and I hold my breath every time on punch. I hold my breath every single time.
Was the guy Adam Humphries or DeAndre Carter?
Carter was the one they signed who is a specialist. Yep. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if he's good, but it's what he does.
Kadarius Toney, they met with him 3 times so far from what I've seen. That's a name to look out for. I think they want to use him. If they were to draft him, I think they would use him as the returner, and they want to use him on offense. So I know they met with him 3 times so far. So that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on.
And looking forward into next season, we'll be done with the draft, done with the free agents. Let's say we add a couple of pieces here and there. What do you guys, let's start with what do you guys expect? For me, it's got to be another division title, given we're playing basically no one next season. The Daniel Jones useless. Dak Prescott is getting overpaid money to do absolutely nothing. And Ezekiel Elliott just runs around in the backfield losing yards. And God knows what's happening up in Philadelphia. So surely, God, we've got to win the division, right?
Yeah, it may be another 7-10, because 17 games, a 7-10, 8-9 division, right? I definitely think that the division won't be strong again. Even if Dak Prescott's back, that their defense was still giving 29, I think, 0.6 points a game. But over the first 5-6 games, or for more than half of the season, they're giving up like 33 points a game defensively. Even if they improve that number to 27, you're still giving up 27 points a game, right? So I think the Cowboys' defense is still going to be a problem. I think the Giants are all Daniel Jones. It's all comes down to Daniel Jones. If he has a big year, I think they're going to be good. If he doesn't, Galladay and Saquon and Slayton are all getting wasted. And then the Eagles, I'm not even worried about at all. So I think for me, it's at least competing for that. I think that's what I would expect, which is why I want a quarterback this year, because I think you're going to be contending for the division, having a later first round pick, at least not falling backwards in terms of wins. If you can at least duplicate the number of wins, which is what looks like with what looks like a much tougher schedule. Like we play everyone who went to the playoffs and the Super Bowl last year. I think that is, I think that's impressive. So yeah, that's my, just don't take a step back, take some kind of step forward, 7, 8, 9, and compete for the division again. Should be doable.
Yeah, same. I think we'll compete for the division as well. I think that defense is just going to get better and better, and the coaching is another year in the system. I think I'm going to say they're going to repeat the division. I really believe that, depending on Fitzmagic.
Right.
Highly depend on Fitzmagic.
Yeah, it does.
You guys will get a great laugh out of this. Me and Fionn were on a podcast, and I inadvertently said that the Giants would sweep the football team in the upcoming season. So I believe that. I have to believe that, but I'm not sure Fionn was so bought in on that one.
I got to be honest with you, Jake. I can't say anything back to you because Daniel Jones is 4-0 against Washington. He's like 7-30 in his career, but he's 4-0 against Washington. So I can't say anything because he's been killing us. Hopefully not, though.
Hey, I love Daniel Jones too. I want y'all to keep him for the
Me too. I just want him to keep him for the opposite reason that you want to keep him.
Right,
it's so scary to see him have the ball for more than 2.5 seconds because you don't know whether A, he's going to get hit and he's going to fumble the ball, or B, he's going to throw it and it's going to get intercepted. Although Evan Engram might have been a big hand in all of those.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
But we're not talking about Giants.
But I wanted to ask, actually, because we're talking about the schedule next year. It is going to be an awful lot tougher for Washington because you do have the AFC West and the NFC South, I believe, next year to face, as well as the division winners. So it's sort of two questions. So is it still, I know you got the 3 teams that you're going to face, they're fine, like you mentioned about them already, and there's no worries about them, especially the Giants, who will probably be a dumpster fire this year.
I know you only have Russell Wilson next year, so you may walk off this podcast. But it is going to be a lot tougher going up against these sides. And secondly, what you mentioned briefly there about the 17th game. Are you in favor of the 17th regular season game this year?
So the second one, yes, I am in favor of 17. They got rid of the preseason game, and so yeah, I'm all more football for sure. I'm not a player, so it doesn't affect my body. And also, they'll balance it out with the amount. Like maybe if the players played a quarter or 2 quarters in the preseason, you take that. Is it really a full game? Is it really 3 quarters, 2 quarters in the season? The only thing that's weird about it is no more 8 and 8. That's going to be weird. As far as the season, the schedule goes, the one, I think, upside that we have is that you look at the schedule, the toughest teams we anticipate are the Bucs, Chiefs, Seahawks, and Packers, and the Bills that stand out. And the Packers and the Bills we play there, which to me is always an advantage for them, especially the Packers. The Seahawks, to me, and I know you're a fan, maybe you can attest this, or maybe I'm wrong, they definitely feel different away, especially on the West Coast. Especially on the East Coast, than they do at home. Because I know they're unstoppable at home.
Actually, their record traveling to the East Coast is strangely really good.
Gotcha.
They travel really well for those early games. Gotcha. I don't know what Pete Carroll does. He must, the week before, he must change all their clocks back or something like that so they get used to the time or something. But every time they go over to the East Coast, I think it's I think the last few years it's 27-6 the record or something like that. They seem to do very well. Now I'm cursing myself right now because I'll lose every game on the East Coast next.
Is that also next losing season to the Colt McCoy led Giants?
That was at home though. That wasn't in New York. That was at home. We messed ourselves up at home.
That was weird. But yeah, and the Seahawks are a very good team. It just seems like we always play the Seahawks close and then we lose. But the other thing is just looking at it now, it looks daunting, but hopefully they don't give us, the first 5 weeks, Bills, Packers, Chiefs, Bucs, Seahawks. Because then, that's probably an 0-5 start. But we saw the teams, the teams start to flame out or they start to deal with some injuries and then things start to look a little more level. So it is daunting, but I can see 6 to best case scenario 10 wins. If things go their way, if the ball literally bounces their way in a couple games, but I'm definitely for 17.
Yeah, the NFC South I'm not really scared of. You got Drew Brees gone, and you got
Falcons defense is still is
exactly. Carolina is. Who else is in?
The Bucs would be the one that you'd be afraid of.
But we want them. We want them again.
We want them. Yeah, we
right. We do want them. Right. We do want them again.
So the schedule doesn't really faze me. Obviously you have the Chiefs, AFC West. We play Denver,
Denver,
Yeah. So
Chargers,
I don't think.
Raiders.
Yes, those aren't really intimidating. I look at the Seahawks; they're tough, obviously, and a couple of the Bills and the Packers. Those are going to be tough games. But I just think the way that the culture that Ron has put in place, and the fact that they're coming in as the division champs, I think they're going to have that edgy, that swag on them this year coming in. I could see 10 wins, and I love the 17th game. I'm all for more football. Like Todd said, it's just going to be weird saying, "Oh, we're 10-7," or we're 6-11, or 5-12. That's going to feel
so
weird.
weird.
But hey, I'm loving it. I love football, and
Hey, I
I'm
feel
glad
like
we
you're
got it
looking
again.
through the next season in burgundy tinted glasses, much like I look like the Giants next season.
With blue glasses. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Speaking of burgundy tinted glasses, I've one last question before I let you guys go, and that is maybe the most important one I've asked all show. What should we do with the name? I think my personal vote is to stick with the Washington football team. I kind of like it. It's a little bit different. Obviously, we're Europeans. We're used to tag name at the end, so it doesn't sound too weird to us. What do you guys think? There's been a lot of ideas floated out. Any ones that stand out for you guys?
Yeah, there's definitely some that stand out, positive and negative. Washington football team is in the middle for me. I don't hate it, but I think the reason I don't want it is because I see so many people say we need a name, and so I don't want people to be saying that forever, feeling like we don't have a name. So I'm definitely less passionate about the specific name. Warthogs is probably the one I hate the most.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I think first of all, I hear wart, which is no, that's negative, that's nasty. Hogs in general are not animals that people like, so then you combine those two, and then it's like, okay, you just combine two kind of not great things to make one ultimate great. And then Sentinels is one that I just really can't get behind. It just makes me think of the Matrix. For me, I think the number one choice for me is it's not Red Wolves, it's Wolves. It's random. I realize that it's random, but I feel like it's cool, and though it has nothing to do with DC, the average fan who's not even a fan of Washington, who just sees it, who hears it, will say, oh, that's pretty cool. So that's kind of that's how I look at it. I want it to be received well by mostly everybody, including Washington fans. So yeah, Warthogs is the one that I just really can't stand, but I wouldn't hate Washington football team or club or DCFC.
I think the reason why we like Washington football team is because we won with the name. I think if we're like 0-16, they're like, oh, let's change the name.
For sure.
Definitely.
A name that I've been, like the last couple of days, I've been thinking about that I really love a lot, and I heard him use it in the Winter Soldier, DC Marvel, the Red Tails.
Really?
I just think it's so. It's weird because at first I'm like, no, I hate it. Then I heard him say it in the movie, and then I'm just like, man, the Red Tails, it's not that bad. I mean,
Isn't it an old fighter team that were Native Americans?
The Tuskegee Airmen.
Yeah.
They were black.
It's pretty cool. Man.
Yeah, I
honestly, we got to talk about this time because I'm starting to warm up to it, man.
I thought we were on the same page with this, Tay. You're flipping.
I like the Wolves. I like the Wolves, but it's either Wolves or Red Tails. It's really close. Or Football Club. Yeah.
I saw a report somewhere that said a name that was being considered was the Demon Cats. Is that a thing? The Demon Cats. If not, can we get a petition or not a GoFundMe, but an online petition just to get Washington called the Washington Ron Burgundies?
I'm not going to sign that petition. I'll pass it on though. I'll pass
the
it
Washington
to the next
Anchormen. How about that then?
It's going to be so fascinating to see. I have no idea what it'll be. I'm curious to see how they'll announce it, and then just to see everyone erupt either positively or negatively. It's going to be insane.
It'll be both, no matter what it is.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It will be both. But I just can't wait. And then if it's something that nobody expected, then, so it's probably, it was my wedding day that I anticipated. And then now seeing what the name is probably the second most impactful thing in my life in the last few years. I cannot wait to see what it is, but I'll be a fan no matter what.
I think that's a great place to wrap it up, guys. Thank you very much for your time. It was my first time co-hosting. It's been a pleasure. You guys made it extra fun and extra easy. Before we leave it off, where can our listeners find you guys socials, podcasts, all that kind of thing. Let them know where they can find you.
You can follow us on Twitter at the letter N, Todd Podcast. You can find our podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify. Everyone just Tay and Todd Podcast. And then also on YouTube, we do film breakdowns and other videos. So that's Tay and Todd Podcast. So if you just type in Tay and Todd anywhere, I think we are the only ones. So that's one thing about having that name. So Tay and Todd. Yep. And thanks so much for having us, guys. It was a blast. Thanks for reaching out.
Yes.
Hopefully we can get you back on again.
For
Absolutely.
sure.
We'd love to have you on maybe before the end of the season or during the season. We definitely talk.
For sure.
Washington, whatever we're called at that
Right.
When they're called the Washington Anchormen, 60% of the time we win all the time.
The Washington human beings.
Oh, that's funny.
Guys, thank you very much, everybody, for watching. Again, like we said at the top, like and subscribe to us here at the Dynamo Podcast Network. You'll find the Under Center podcast. If you prefer your podcasts in purely audio format, we are on Spotify, Apple, all those other good podcast networks, and you can find us under the Dynamo Podcast Network flagship there. All our podcasts will be there. If you want to follow us on socials, we're on Facebook under Center Podcast, and of course we're on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Under Center Pod as well. Guys, Dara, Jake, thank you very much for joining us. Tay, Todd, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
I'm just realizing now I'm wearing the wrong color t-shirt for this type of
Hey,
show.
wow.
I'll call it there. Goodbye.
It's the right one.
On front of the
Undercover
joint.
fans. Undercover fans.
All right, guys.
Literally.